Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today it is the 7th of May 2023. It is Sunday and my name is Carey Holzman. Thank you guys so much for popping in on a rare Sunday show for me. I've got a computer here that I want to review, and this one I bought with funds that are collected in Super Chat contributions, PayPal contributions, Amazon gift cards. However, this was not purchased from Amazon. This was purchased from a company called geekbuying.com. I've never heard of them. And let me pull up the website here. If I can figure out how to do that. Hey, I figured it out. All right, so look, I don't know anything about geekbuying.com. I'd never heard of this company, BMax. It was a coupon I saw, I think, over at slickdeals.net, which you can sign up for to get free coupons for stuff every day. Stuff goes on sale, and you can pick what categories you're interested in. And I don't make any money off of that. I'm telling you so you can save money, that's all. And I saw this computer here for, I think it was under 300 bucks. And it looked pretty well spec'd out with a Core i5 11th gen chip, the 1145G7, which is 4 cores, 8 threads. It includes 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, a terabyte of solid state storage, which is pretty unusual. And of course, it's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Now, I ordered it, received it, and this is sketchy. I don't know how else to explain my reaction to this. It's a weird little machine. It's a weird website that I'm pretty sure is violating Microsoft's terms of service. In fact, it looks like they're actually distributing the entire Windows operating system on their website, which you're not allowed to do. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. It says follow us on Facebook. So what I did was I took it out of the box to do all the updates, so we're not sitting around here for hours waiting on updates. Quite often these machines have 21H1 instead of, or 21H2 instead of 22H2 installed, which is the latest, big update for Windows 10 and 11. And the Windows Update site wasn't working right. It would say it was downloading, and then the whole site would just go blank. And I tried rebooting it. I tried a couple different things. Nothing was working, so I wiped it and reinstalled Windows 11 clean, only to find out that there doesn't appear to be any drivers to download for this. Was it this one? Now I can't remember. There are drivers to download. I take that back. However, once I got Windows 11 reinstalled again, right back to Windows Update, the same exact thing. It appears to be working, but the screen isn't refreshing properly, and I don't know what's going on, but it's a clean install. Because I thought, there was a lot of customization done on this install that I liked. They had the My Computer icon on the desktop, and a lot of pre-selection things that are done away from the defaults were done automatically on this, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. But then I thought, well, maybe there's a virus on it. So I did scanned with Malwarebytes, didn't find anything wrong. So I thought, well, maybe it's got a corrupt file. Let me start over again, completely erase the hard drive, reinstalled Windows 11, redid all the updates, and then the update page just goes blank. So I don't know what's the status of the updates. And if you hit check for updates, you briefly see it while it's still downloading or installing from the last time, and then it just goes blank again. I'm like, I don't know. It was a good price, but I'm starting to figure out why. Now, I've never heard of BMax. They got a pretty cool logo there. But I did put everything back in the box to sort of simulate the unboxing, right? So here's the way it's packed. And we've got a little bit of foam here. Got a plastic bag that they ship in that says, reminder, when you turn on the computer for the first time, please do not connect it to Ethernet or connect to Wi-Fi. This can avoid some settings to make this computer enter Windows faster. The update of Windows will take some time. Please wait patiently for the process to be completed. Please do not cut off the power during the process to prevent damage to system files and your files. And finally, it says, when the Windows is damaged, press the F9 key to enter the BMax Smart Recovery environment to reset Windows after power onto the computer. I did notice when I completely erased all the partitions, this had 5 partitions instead of the traditional 4. and one was called recovery. So they've created some kind of recovery partition. I don't like that. I want that hard drive space for me to use, but it's nice to know that for the average Joe, it's there. And I could have made an Acronis image of it before, but it's not. It's a toy. It's a novelty. I wasn't expecting any of these troubles. And then underneath this little box right here, we've got our little wall wart power adapter here. We've got what looks like a full-length HDMI cable. We've got some screws and a plate to mount it to the back of a monitor. And that looks to be it. So is it a deal? I don't know. It's sketchy in so many different ways, and I don't know if the update thing is an issue that's worth diagnosing, repairing, but let's take a look at it together. I'm not vouching for this company. I'm not recommending their products. I'm going to leave that for you to decide. Sometimes it's worth putting up with stuff if there's enough savings. Like I remember I was eating lunch at this factory where we built computers, and the roach coach or the food truck pulled up, and the boss went out there. Everybody went out there and bought breakfast, and we're sitting around eating, and the boss looks up at me and he goes, "You know, this is pretty good bacon and eggs for $1.99." And I was puzzled by that statement, because in my mind, something is good or something is not good as far as food goes. And so I asked him for clarity on that. I'm confused. You're saying the food is good for $1.99, but the food would not be as good if it was $3.99? And he's there across from the table eating, and he says, he stops, he thinks about it. He goes, "Yeah, that's exactly what I mean." Okay. All right, so let's get this plugged in. And hello to everybody joining in the chat room. Hello to Elko Stoffels, Adoman 2000, Jim, KJ3N, and Kevin Doan. Welcome also to Glenn's Music, Mark Baggett, Arnold Schmidt. Hello to Wayne Pierce. Hello to Horrible Amy. Hello to Sarge Tech, Chris Johnson, Patrick Rusaw. Scott says hello. Hello to Mats Olof, watching us all the way from Sweden. And hello to Jason Willis, Paul Garrett, our friend Luke Greenia, who watches us from Vermont, Matthew Burden, Josh Kinder, Eddie Casanova, Leo Saunders. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining me. How's your Sunday? I hope it's well. Hope it's good. Frankie B saying hello in the chat. Trevor Dune and Bruce Lucas say hello, as does Ian McLeod and Ron Barnish. Hello to Michael Shaw. Hello to Gramey. Hello to David Tracy. Hey, guys. Let's get this thing plugged in and see what it's going to do. Now, this is going to be a fresh install of Windows 11 without the recovery partition. We have a pretty short power cable here, which, what are you going to do? Oh, and as for the ports on this thing, we've got a couple HDMIs there, a couple of USB 2s, Ethernet, power, nothing but vents on the sides. And the front has got our power button, a couple of USB 3s, and a USB Type-C, a headset jack here, and looks like a recessed BIOS reset there. All right, so we'll give that a plug, and we'll plug it into the internet since I've already gotten past that stage. Oh, and Windows did not automatically reactivate. That's the other thing that's really sketchy. When manufacturers sell you a computer with Windows 10 or 11, or even Windows 7 or 8, the product code, well, let's just stick with talking about Windows 10 and 11 since Windows 7 and 8 are in the past. The product code is recorded on Microsoft's activation servers to match the serial number, essentially, of your motherboard. And when you reinstall the same version of Windows, so let's say Windows 10 Pro, as long as it was activated with a Windows 10 Pro key prior, reinstalling Windows 10 Pro without a product code should result, when you go to Windows Update, in Windows Update recognizing your motherboard serial number and reassigning your product code and reactivating Windows. That did not happen here. And given how they're distributing Windows on their own website, which is really super sketchy and against all the rules, I don't know how they activated this. And if I would have taken an Acronis image of it, I could pull a power script to pull the product key out of it. I suspect they're all being shipped with the same product key, and that's why it's not auto-recognizing it. But I just have the one. I don't have any way to test that theory, but that's what I think is what's going on, which just continues to make this sketchy. Now, the benefit of sketchy is sketchy can be cheaper, right? It's like when you're buying a Rolex watch from a guy who opens his jacket and he's got a bunch of watches there. You can get a really good price, but, you know, might not be a real Rolex, or could be stolen, or who knows where that came from if it were real. Or if you look closely, it might be a Molex watch, which is, you know, pretty close, but not the same. All right, so I got that all plugged in. Let me step around here, and let's turn on the HDMI input on the capture card. Oh, I need to hook up my keyboard and my mouse, don't I? Just plug that in right up front. Keyboard and mouse. And then I'm going to take camera 1 and put it up here in the corner. Oh, I'm still on that website. Let's turn that off. And let's turn this on. Okay, it's got a blue power light that comes on. There's no drive activity light or anything like that. I think we're seeing the end of those from moving forward. Mark Gaines says, check my email. All righty. Hello, Mark Gaines. Mark watches us from the United Kingdom. And Mark sends an Amazon gift card. Again, right on. He sends a $25 Amazon gift card. Thank you, Mark. Shout out and a huge thanks to Mark Gaines. All right, now here's where things are really, really wonky. If I go full screen on this so I can see it. Okay, now I can see it. Let's go to Windows Update. And I'll show you what happened, why I ended up reformatting it here. Because I've never seen a computer do this before, and I thought for sure it was the latest not the latest. I thought for sure it was something corrupt on the system files. So you see it says it's downloading this update, and it's all staying on the screen like it should. Okay, where did it go? It clearly wasn't done yet. So if I hit check for updates, watch, and we'll see those updates at least. Yeah, see, it's still, and then it went away again. Let me get rid of my camera because you guys may not be able to see that fully. I don't know what this is, but this is a clean install, so I know there's no corruption going on. If I hit check for updates, watch. You will see it is still updating all those things in the background, and it should be giving us the status, and it's not there. Has anybody ever seen this? Do any of you recognize this behavior? Is there some function, some button that needs to get pressed? Because I can't tell when it's done, right? If I check for updates, I will briefly see what it's doing, and then it hides it. And that's what it did brand new out of the box. Is the hardware Windows 11 supported? It is, yes. Jason Willis says that happens when I force Windows 11 on pre-8th edition Intel chips. Interesting. You know, we could run, just to verify, the health check. Let's open up the browser and let's type is my PC Windows 11 capable? Can my PC run Windows 11? There should be a download here to check. Maybe just type in upgrade Windows 11, and then let's see, there should be a Microsoft Store. Windows 11. No, that's the Microsoft. I don't want that. No, no, no. Windows 11 system requirements. Get ready for the Windows 11 upgrade. Okay. Back up your files. Da, 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 da. There should be. Let's do it this way. Let's type in download Windows 11. Yeah, I know I misspelled it. Google corrected. Software download. Windows 11 installation. Disk imaging tool. I thought there was a button to check to make sure. There was an application to see if it's Windows 11 ready. Windows 11 ISO, Windows 11 Media, Installation Assistant. Let's see. I'll download the Installation Assistant. Let's see what that has to say. Yes, this should be absolutely Windows 11 compliant. Okay, well, it says we've already got it. Well, we sort of have it. It's not working like it's supposed to. Let's see what else. Is my PC Windows 11 capable? Test. I swear they had a little program to download and run. Kevin says he thinks it was at the top of the page in blue. Let me go back. No, that's not where I wanted to go. System requirements. TPM version 2.0. Where did it go? Thought it was, no, didn't want that. Definitely did not want that. Didn't want that either. PC health check. Yeah, you guys, thank you for telling me to slow down. Your PC is already running Windows 11. Okay, well, here you go. I don't know what to say. This whole thing is just super sketchy. Let's take a quick look. Wait a minute, let me check for updates. Is it done or is it still running updates? I don't know. Let's see, opens and closes. It's maddening. All right, so I'm going to try and get into the BIOS. How about that? We'll go to privacy security, advanced recovery, advanced startup. And then we'll choose to go into the BIOS. Troubleshoot, advanced, UEFI. Now this should take us into the BIOS. And we can reset the BIOS. I haven't tried that. All right, let's see. that looks happy. Let's just go to restore defaults. What else do we have on here? Nothing is immediately grabbing my attention. I'm not studying this too hard. I don't want to hurt my brain. I think, oh, that's fine. I don't want a PXE boot. There's no NVMe drive in here? What is in here? Save changes and reset. All right, let's reboot it. And then you can see it's real true to life boot time here. Is it, we do this live. And we'll see, first of all, how long it takes to boot. And secondly, we'll go back to Windows Update. So that 1 terabyte drive, which I thought was such a good deal, didn't occur to me that that was not going to be an NVMe drive, which is kind of weird because the SATA drives typically cost more and are a quarter of the speed. I don't know why, but that's just the way things are. Let's go back over to Windows Update and see if it's any happier. Check for updates. Nothing. Let's take a look. We can turn that on, yes. Account protection, I don't need that. Dismiss. Device security. Core isolation, someone's mentioning core isolation. Is that on? Let's turn it off. See if that makes any difference. And restart. Yes. Just want to get to the bottom of this. It's very bizarre. Back to Windows Update. Yeah, it appears and then it disappears. So what's happening is it's still downloading that file. If I check it again, you'll see it again. Oh, we see 2 now. If we keep checking it, those same 2 will appear until they're installed. Is this a video driver problem? I just don't know. Let's try the Intel Driver and Support Assistant. Oh, I've already run this. Just had graphics driver install. So it should be down here hidden, huh? Yeah, it is. There it is. Seems to be locked. It's not letting me move anything. Huh. Yeah. So, am I just seeing the same one over and over again? Looks like a bunch of Windows Defender updates. Bizarre. This is truly bizarre. But I saved a lot of money. This is what happens when people go to save money. This is often the end result. You're buying a product you never heard of. You might be buying it from a sketchy source like eBay or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, or in this case, Geek Buying, whatever that is. I don't know what's going on. It's very, very strange, and I mean, I'm a tech. I'm kind of interested, right? It adds a little variety to my otherwise pretty predictable day. But I can imagine this would really upset a lot of people. Let's take a look. Let me go back over to this computer and let's take a look at their website. So let's just type in, where did I go? Bear with me for a second, I lost my page. Okay, I'm on HDMI input. And let me make that a bigger screen so I can see it. Full screen. All right, let's just close this thing out. What the heck is going on over here with this thing? And let's go to, let's Google. And this is a BMax, what did I say the model number was? Let's just type in BMax support. Okay. BMaxIT.com is the website, that's good. And we're looking for download mini PCs. Please enter the part number, which I guess I've done that before. Search. And here is, it doesn't tell us what anything is. User's manual. Oh, I guess it's file name is all you're going to get for a description. B7 Pro drivers. And now you've got a B7 Pro Windows 11. See, that's the thing they're not allowed to do. And this, I believe, is a massive file. I think this is like 10 gigs. Yeah. Readme.txt. Applicable product as pre-installed Windows 11. Okay. And they're distributing this through OneDrive. Someone's got to pay for the bandwidth. Before installing the operating system, please carefully read the steps of the tutorial. This ensures your computer's not damaged. Okay. Format a flash drive. Use the file system drop-down, select FAT32. Why do we put it in FAT32? How's that gonna work? Oh, I guess that'll be all right. Isn't it a maximum 4 gigs of FAT32? Huh. Weird. Look at the size of this file. If I hit download, you look at the top right corner. Whoops. That is a big file. So I've already downloaded it. We're not going to sit there and stare at that. And then you can't pick which drivers you want. When you go back here, there's just a, and again, it shows us the drivers subfolder, even though we picked OS, and this is both folders. And it's got this drivers.zip file, which is a pretty big file itself. This one runs, let me hit the download button here. Is it going to download? Yeah. And that's like a gig of drivers. But what I liked what they did with the drivers is they renamed everything. So somebody's pretty clever who's working for this company. And they renamed, come to the downloads folder, and these are the extracted folders. And you just type in, you right click on this and run that as administrator. And what that does is it just goes through all the installers, and you'll see like OEM40.inf, OEM41.inf, OEM42.inf. Somebody renamed them and put numbers on them. So I don't know which INF files are for which pieces of hardware because they've completely renamed them. But I kind of admire that skill. And then this is the big operating system folder, which is, how big is this? It was a 10 gig file, which once extracted becomes, Show more options, properties. Yeah, still 10.8. Doesn't look like they got much out of the compression if that's the case. 10.8 extracted, and what was the file before? 10.7. Well, they didn't get much compression out of that, did they? But anyway, you know, that's a full install of Windows 7 that, again, to the best of my knowledge, they are not allowed to distribute this. And if I look at, let me just close this out. If I look at the status of this version of Windows, unless it had Windows 11 Home, maybe that's why it's not automatically activating. If I check my activation status, it says I'm not active. So unless it had Windows 11 Home previously, which is possible. Again, I tend to be a bit impatient at times, and I certainly, after a while, start to assume things are a certain way. Let me go back over to the BMax site and see if it specifies what version of Windows 11 it comes with. I thought it came with Pro. Let's go back over to the Windows capture mode. Let's go back over to that Geek Buying to see how they advertised it, because that's where I got it from. Just says Windows 11. It doesn't say Home or Pro. Highlights. Features an empty expansion bay to allow adding an M.2 SATA. Oh, it's M.2 SATA. Yeah, I just assumed that was a 1 terabyte NVMe, but it's an M.2 SATA drive. Do they not allow for NVMe on this? It's Wi-Fi 6. Benchmarks. Shows Windows 11, but again, I don't see where they're specifying which flavor of Windows 11. The Smart Recovery environment, so I just completely nuked that because I would never use it, and I don't want the hard drive space being consumed by that. I'll make my own recovery with Acronis. Thank you very much. All right, here's some specs. Windows 11. So again, they don't specify Home or Pro. Great. That's just great. Times like this, I wish I would have made an Acronis image first thing out of the box. What are you gonna do? All right, let me go back to camera 1. And let's see what you guys are saying in the chat room. Richard Cullen pops into the chat, says hello everyone, as does Bradley Morris. And let's see. Glenn's Music says I found the exact problem here. Let's take a look. Yeah, that is the problem. Thanks for reaching out. First, it has been interrupted by the system's corrupted files, or it's being prevented by a third-party programmer interface. I don't have any of that. Run the Windows Update troubleshooter. Enable Windows Update via services. So I think I did all that. I reset Windows Update. There is a batch file they have that you can download that does all that for you, so you don't have to type it all in. That's a pretty generic answer to a very specific question. But again, there's no way I went from a corrupted install, wiped it completely clean with my own Windows 11 install media that I've used dozens of times before with no problem, and suddenly it has the exact same problem it had before, no, it's not going to be a corrupted file unless something's damaged, like if we got some bad RAM, or maybe the SSD's file integrity is not good. But again, what are the odds of the exact same file being the issue? If it's an area in the memory that's bad, that would make more sense, but even that seems a bit far-fetched. But thank you for the link, Glenn's Music. Let me see if I can, let's go back here to the HDMI input, and let's shut this down, and let's open it up, take a look on the inside. I have not done that yet. Really bugs me that it's not an NVMe drive. Shut down. And back over to camera 1. And you know what? Let me grab the overhead. Let's see, where's that HDMI cable for the overhead? Right here. Okay. Okay, let's see. Let's turn that on. I gotta move a cable. I almost tripped on a cable over here, so let me move it while I'm thinking about it, so it doesn't move me later. And let's go to close-up camera. All right, so we're gonna start by just unplugging everything here. I'm gonna need these later, so I'll just put the box on top of them. Take my dongle out. Let's move this back a little bit so I don't have to reach up as far. Screwdriver. All right. Well, I like that we don't have to remove any rubber feet to remove screws. So that's good. I mean, it's close to being a very good PC at a great price. But that's a pretty big deal, and especially when a new install doesn't fix it. Certainly don't expect to have problems with a brand new computer. And I don't know what the return process is, or if there even is one for geekbuying.com. Move those over there. Looks like there's a little notch right there. Oh, so the ribbon cable for there's a room for a 2.5-inch drive to go here, and I didn't realize there was going to be anything connected to that, and I almost ripped that ribbon cable right out of there. And there's our M.2 drive, but is it SATA only? Thought I saw something about NVMe in the BIOS. So yeah, and there's our B key. Let me just grab an NVMe drive. I got plenty of them laying around here. NVMe, what do I have? Oh, I got this Crucial P5. We can use that. That'll do. Good enough for testing anyway. See if it even recognizes it. Or is it going to be SATA only? It does not appear to be a SATA only socket. Of course, there's our RAM made by some company I've never heard of before. That's the M.2 I'm going to be putting in there. Zoom that back out. No real information about the specifications of this RAM is on the RAM at all. It's completely blank on that side. So we'll have to look it up in like CPU-Z or something to determine what the heck that is. That's suspicious. We've got a QR code down here with a description of the CPU. Camera will focus. Okay. Put that in there. That's back on. I'll just set this back in. I'm not going to tighten it back down. And then we'll plug all the connectors back into it here. Oh, there goes my power cable. I don't want the Ethernet plugged in because I'm going to have to do an install of Windows 11. Unless that Crucial drive has an install on it already. I know one way to find out for sure. Let me walk around the table here and find the power connector that just fell on the ground and plug that back in. Okay. And let's go back to camera 1. There we go. And we'll turn this off for now. Eventually it'll turn off. There it goes. And then let me move that camera arm out of the way of the shot. Okay. Look at me, big time. Big time over here. All right, so I'm done with that for now. Done with that for now. That's our M2 SATA drive that was in there. Let me go back over to HDMI input. Let's take camera 1, put me in the corner, and turn this on. I don't know if it's going to say there's no bootable operating system. So I've got a Windows 11 media right here. Nothing's happening yet. Glenn's Music says, I just checked and that Windows update glitch happens on his PC too. There's a lot of forums currently discussing the KB 500-7651 update. Wait, so I did all this for nothing? It's actually a decent computer? And that is not even turning on anymore with an NVMe drive in it, which I find pretty interesting. Let me unplug it. Plug it back in again. Just seems odd to me an 11th gen processor, even on the lowest end, should have the capability of an NVMe drive. Seems like you'd have to go out of your way to disable that, but I don't know what they did. It certainly doesn't seem to like this at all. That's quite interesting. See, I take the hits so you don't have to. Let me pull the plug again. This open. Darn it, I've almost yanked that SATA cable right out. That's twice now I've done that. We'll remove the crucial P5. Put back in this Keystone, whatever. I'm going to bring this up to the camera so you can see it. Let's go full screen on camera 1. Yeah, they're using some really sketchy parts here. Is it trying to be Kingston? Keystone. No idea. I just can't believe this thing has a SATA controller only. I mean, did we go back in time? Close that up. Turn the power back in. And I'll put my video back up in the corner where I was. Turn this back on. See if we get a post screen this time. Seems odd to me that the system wouldn't even post. Like, I would think it would still post and say it didn't detect any bootable device. Maybe once I've opened it, I've voided the warranty and it's self-destructed it. Sometimes I have a habit of not plugging the cable all the way in, so let me just double check my work there. Let me try the other HDMI port. That shouldn't matter. I'm going to pull the power cable from it, let it power off, plug it back in, turn it back on, and let's see if we get anything out of it this time. It's quite an adventure when you want to save money. Wow, that is some cheap plastic. It's bowing just by a little bit of pressure on it. I can see how they got the price down. I'm starting to see it now. It's possible I didn't seat the RAM correctly, so let me pull the power again. And let me take this RAM module back out. In fact, let's just leave that RAM module out. And let's turn it back on and see if we get a post. I might have broke it.
Broke what?
This little mini PC. I think it's embarrassed. Oh, it posted. Okay, so it's going to load us back into Windows 11. And now I want to shut it back down and change that SATA drive to the NVMe again. See what's going on with that. Sarge Tech says, booting impossible. Is that the new Tom Cruise movie? All right. Where was I? I'm going to shut this back down. Power off. Shut down. Okay. And then we'll go back to full screen on camera 1. System is shut off. And my glasses. Windows 11 will go over there. Back into the corner with me. And let's turn this back on. There it goes. Hey, went right into the BIOS this time. Okay. Let me take another look in here. It says NVMe configuration right there, but then it says no NVMe device found. Huh. Well, that's a little interesting, just a little bit. Apparently that's 2666 RAM. SATA controller. SATA mode. That doesn't really help us with NVMe. That's a different thing altogether. RTC, don't care. Security stuff, don't really care. Restore factory keys. Okay. Boot options, boot priorities, boot override. Yeah, I got a feeling, based on the fact it's not seeing the NVMe drive in the BIOS, that somehow that has been disabled. I'm going to try one other thing. I'm going to grab my Windows 11 installation media. We're going to plug that right in up to the front here. And then hit escape, quit without saving. And then let's run through the Windows 11 setup. I suspect it's going to say that there's no drive found to install on. Sarge Tech says that hot dog's looking more appetizing compared to this. Ah, yes. All unhappiness is caused by comparison. If you'd stop comparing things, you'd never be unhappy ever again. Don't have a product key. Of course, I'm only booting with half the RAM in it right now, but that's okay. I suspect if the BIOS doesn't see the NVMe drive, the software sure as heck isn't going to. I just want to confirm that, though. Yeah, no drive installed. Okay. That's what I thought was going to happen. So I'm starting to understand why this was priced so aggressively. Now, in the real world, very few people are going to notice a difference between SATA and NVMe. I know you see the benchmarks and you're seeing 3,000, 5,000, 8,000 megabytes per second, but it really doesn't result in your operating system loading noticeably faster. You're getting to a point of diminishing returns on these performance numbers, but it does just seem broken to me that an 11th gen processor would be SATA only. So yes, I'm starting to understand why this was such a good deal. It's starting to make sense now. What a bizarre engineering decision that was made here. So I'm going to put that back in. That's the original SATA 1 terabyte drive. I thought 1 terabyte was a lot of capacity for one of these at that price, and well, you know what? Totally makes sense now. the other RAM module back in, plug this back in, and let's fire it up again. Back over to the HDMI input. Let's see if we get a post this time around. It may take a minute as it retrains the RAM, so we have to be patient. And you know what, I'm going to put myself back in the corner so you guys aren't too confused with what's going on over here. Wow, that is a very finicky system, but it did eventually post. And then that should just load us right back into Windows 11. Paul says, when one of my computers, the NVMe drive isn't detected until NVMe is turned on in the BIOS. That's why I was looking through the BIOS to see if there was anything in there. Did you see anything in there? Because I went through all the options, I think. Maybe a newer BIOS. I didn't see any BIOS being offered for download. I took you to the website. I showed you the support page. There's an instruction manual, there are drivers, and there's a full Windows 11 install media download that's 10 gigs. I've not seen anything else in that regard. Full screen over on my side, and let's go back over to Windows Update. Oh, I didn't plug the internet into it. I suppose I have to do that, don't I? Step around here and find where my internet cable fell. There it is. Let's retry that. Okay, that looks like it's supposed to. Oh, and now it went away again. That is so bizarre. So apart from that one issue, it seems like it's running like it's supposed to, but there's some real sketchy parts in here. I am very, very concerned about that download of Windows 11. I could try it just to see what would happen if we take a flash drive. Let's see, I got a flash drive in here small enough. These are 16 gigs each. Let's plug that in. And let's make sure that that's formatted in FAT32. It is FAT32, so then I can go to the Downloads folder, take the whole Install Media folder and copy that. Right onto this blank USB drive. So that's going to take a couple minutes. And let's see what you guys have to say in the chat room. Leslie Cavan says hello. Savvy Wizard says, I did not see a lock section of the BIOS that would have to be unlocked. Yeah, no, the locked, usually that refers to whether or not you can update the BIOS. If the BIOS is locked, that way some malware can't flash your BIOS. Get on the phone to the developers? Yeah, I don't think that's going to be possible. Roy Glass says, do you notice they didn't tell you it's not NVMe compatible? Well, I mean, if they told you what wasn't compatible, there's probably a lot of stuff like IDE probably isn't compatible, or MFM, or ORL, or SCSI, or SAS. I mean, that would be 1,400 pages of what it's not compatible with. But it does seem that that information it's not like they're lying, right? It's not like they're making a false promise, but we get accustomed to certain things being the normal, the default, and yeah, this is not either of those two things. And, you know, look, if this was a $200 computer, I'd say, okay, but this was like a $300 computer. And quite honestly, I think the $200 offerings from Ace Magician and B-Link and even Minis Forum that don't have as modern of a processor, they might be Celeron, it's still modern, but just not as high up, like this is supposed to be what, like an i5, that they have the Celeron processors there that are under $200. They're not going to come with as big of a storage drive, but in many cases it is NVMe. So you can see how the faster processor might be slowed down by slower RAM and slower storage. And that way the Celeron slower processor that might have faster RAM and it might have faster storage could be faster than the i5. It depends on how you equip everything else around it. Just like having a Ferrari on the freeway at rush hour isn't going to really benefit you over any other cars on the freeway getting anywhere any faster. Now, I'm not suggesting they asked too much money for this. I think they asked exactly what it was worth after the coupon, after it was made out to be a big deal. What a sale. Well, okay. Maybe I'm a little spoiled because I'm seeing these other machines from B-Link, from Minis Forum, and from Ace Magician and Cam Rui that, you know, to give it some perspective, to give it some comparison, I think those machines are better, quite frankly, than what's ever going on here. And I can't stress how wrong it is that you can download Windows 11 from their site, which is being hosted on Microsoft's OneDrive. I mean, I know a lot of these small companies will use a shared drive like Google Drive or OneDrive to distribute the files, but not a 10 gig file. Come on. Savvy Wizard says M.2 NVMe/SATA SSD slot pre-installed Windows 11, according to BMax it. Huh. I don't know. Yeah, there might be something in the BIOS I'm missing. I don't know. And remember, this is all being filmed live. There's no rehearsal. There's no editing. It's just me taking an initial look at it. If I really wanted to hunker down and really pick at it with more focus and attention and then make the video afterwards, I could probably be a little more focused and detailed in the depth at which I'm going. But to keep the show moving and because it's live, I'm sort of looking for what's obvious. Mortant in the chat room says hello. Welcome in, Mortant. Joe wants to know if Secure Boot's being set to custom cause it not to being recognized. No, the BIOS should recognize the hardware, regardless of the options in the BIOS. It should still, the BIOS is going to tell you what it can see on the motherboard. And then within the BIOS, you can make changes to those detected hardware options, such as the RAM and the CPU and all the settings for RAM timings and everything else, all the settings for the CPU. And then if there was, like the BIOS does show an NVMe section, but does not detect the NVMe drive. Now it's possible that there's a setting somewhere that has that disabled, but I quickly sort of went through the BIOS. So unless you saw it, tell me what I missed. Joshua says BMax says it's M.2 SATA. Yes, BMax does say that. I didn't say they didn't. What I am saying though is that you would think that it would be NVMe compatible, that you could upgrade that SATA to an NVMe drive. And it does not appear to be the case, even though the BIOS does have an NVMe section. The system doesn't, it's as though the slot were empty and nothing were in it when we put an NVMe drive in there. So we'll just see what this version of Windows has to offer. And I think I'm going to go ahead and copy those two downloaded files, the driver's zip file and this file I'm copying now. I'm going to copy those again onto a separate flash drive so I don't have to re-download them again after the install of Windows. Doman 2000 says the NVMe needs the chipset support. If it's not there, it just won't work. Yeah, clearly. Let's see. Almost done. Glenn's Music says if you connect a different computer and run Windows Update, do you get the same issue? So I don't know if you're aware of how many computers I work on every day, Glenn. I mean, you're here pretty regularly. You get a small taste of it. I run Windows Update regularly on half a dozen computers on average every day. So including today, I've never seen that behavior on any other machine. And you know, laptops or minis, they all work fine. Just this one is the one that's doing it. If I would have noticed it happening on other systems, I wouldn't suspect there was something wrong with the system for me to open it up and do everything I'm doing, right? I would have said, there appears to be a problem with Windows Update that's affecting multiple systems. I didn't say that. What I said was, when I go to Windows Update on this system, this behavior happens, and that I've never seen that behavior before. So, just so we're on the same page. And he says, it's happening here, and a few people in the chat reported it. Yeah, no, I saw your post earlier. I read your post out loud. I went to the link that you posted. Yeah, I got that. We already talked about this. Jason wants to know, did you flip the board over to see if there is a separate NVMe slot? No, there wouldn't be a separate NVMe slot. Typically, when you flip these over, the only thing you're going to find is the CPU cooling fan. All of that's on the other side of it. There would not be an NVMe slot on that side. I don't think I've ever seen a unit where you had to flip it over to do that. And it doesn't seem to indicate that there is another slot in the BIOS. So again, until you rip it apart and look, how can you be sure, right? I just think that'll be a waste of time, honestly. Chris McGraw says, I've seen this happen on a Gen 3 NVMe slot with a Gen 4 NVMe drive. I've not. Gen 4 drive should recognize just fine on a Gen 3 slot. And besides, this is just a Crucial P5, and I think the Crucial P5 is a pretty cheap NVMe drive. I don't believe this is Gen 4, is it? No, this is Gen 3. Yeah, the Crucial P5 is a Gen 3. So that is not applicable in this scenario. Let me close this out. So now this should be, I guess, a bootable Windows 11 media flash drive. I don't know. And what I'm going to do is eject that. And then I'm going to put another flash drive in here so I can copy those two big downloads, because I don't want to wait for those to download again. And I know I'm going to need them again. That much I know for sure. Let me see. This will work. And go over to the downloads directory, and we're going to grab, oh, wrong mouse. I'm going to go to the downloads directory, and we're going to grab, oh heck, let's just grab it all. Copy and paste. Okay. Leslie Cavan says, I have a question. My AMD processor is not updating. What can I do to fix it? It's not updating what? I don't know what you mean by that question. Processors don't get updates. Can you explain what it is you're trying to do? And specifically, what are you clicking on? And then what are you expecting it to do versus what is it doing? That would help me to understand your question. Chris Johnson says, going from NASCAR to Carey is quite the transition. Well, apparently somebody likes to see things go around in circles. Oh, Sarge Tech finds the Keystone M.2 PCIe NVMe SSD available at AliExpress.com. All right. Of course, this is not an NVMe, though. This is a SATA. Michael Dane says, I wonder if you turn the SATA option off, would the NVMe slot become active? Oh, we could try that, but typically they're not connected. So normally that doesn't work that way. Normally the PCIe channel or the NVMe channel is a direct PCIe channel, and the SATA is a completely different channel altogether. However, when we're dealing with cheap junk, cheap stuff, you never can put comparing it to normal, maybe doing myself a disservice because there's nothing about this that's normal. But I kind of feel like I overpaid for it now that I'm seeing the quality of components that was selected for this. But again, in everyday usage, probably most people wouldn't know the difference in performance from SATA to NVMe. This is not a machine for somebody like that. And most computer users are not like that. The vast majority of computer users would not tell the difference. But obviously my audience does not represent the vast majority of computer owners. Otherwise, I'd have a much bigger audience. Denny wants to know if there's a jumper on the motherboard. So these mini PCs, generally speaking, don't have any room for stuff like that. When you're looking at a traditional motherboard, and even if you were, can you show me a motherboard that has ever existed where a jumper had to be moved to enable or make any difference in performance to the NVMe drive? In other words, apart from your creative imagination, do you have any precedent from which to draw your suspicion, or are you just making things up in your head? Because it sounds like you're just making up stuff without any precedent. And that may be fine and well and good if you're sitting around tinkering with your stuff, but I wouldn't look for that because I've never seen anything like that in my entire career. So again, it's not to say it doesn't exist. You know, hey, they make some pretty weird stuff out there at AliExpress. But generally speaking, these mini PCs, there's not going to be any jumpers on them, ever. I would be curious if you even found a mini PC motherboard that had a jumper on it, regardless of what it did. Not even a clear CMOS jumper in most cases. They're just super, super tiny. All right, I've almost got these files copied, which might seem like it takes a while, but you should see how long it takes to download. This is rocket ship fast by comparison. All right, we're almost done and got it. All right, good, because I don't want to download that again. And let me eject that. All right, take that out. And let's put this one back in. This is our Windows 11 install media that's been downloaded from the folks at BMax. I'll tap and release the power button, which should cycle the power off. And then as soon as it powers off, there it goes. We're going to turn it back on. And what did it say? I wanted F9, I think is what it said, F9. Please wait. Well, it's polite. Use a device, UEFI, USB partition 1. Let's see if that's bootable just by copying the files over. Something's happening. I can't tell if it's given up trying to boot from the USB drive or if it's booting from it. Oh, look at, what the heck have they done? Wait, what is this? I don't think you're supposed to give this to the public. Okay, well, apparently it's creating partitions. I didn't tell it to do anything. Well, I'm glad I copied those files off of the drive. Holy cow, what is this? Wow, that's a new one. Jim S. says it looks fishy. Indeed. Indeed it does. Figuratively and literally. Just grabbing another cold Gatorade here while we wait. That is one of the strangest things I have ever seen. And I've seen some pretty strange things, let me tell you. Chris Garrett said it looks like it may be an OEM recovery. Yeah. It looks like an OEM deployment system that they would use in the factory. Sarge Tech says this is one for the books. Yeah. Well, let's see what it installs, if it's going to be Windows 11 Home or Windows 11 Pro. Very unusual, very unusual. Oystein joins us. Why so many partitions? Well, it creates a recovery partition, and then when you're in a UEFI BIOS, you have like the 4K offset partition, I think, and then you've got the system partition, and your standard Windows 10 or 11 install on a UEFI BIOS is going to be 4 partitions. That's normal. And then this also adds a recovery partition. Jason says, it says Windows 10. It does say it's a Windows 10 deployment system, but you can deploy. So Windows 11 is really nothing more than Windows 10 with a different skin on it, at this point anyway. So anything that pretty much works on Windows 10 works on 11, because it's like, you know, they've just changed its clothes, but it's still the same person. If we were to try and find an analogy to explain that. But I appreciate your attention to detail. Scott Allen said, I guess this beats the circle while waiting. That circle always reminds me of a toilet flushing. Leslie Cavan says, when I try to run the download and install program, it doesn't update the software or update the drivers. So what program is that, Leslie? When I run the download, when you run the, again, I don't understand your question. What software are you trying to update? What are you clicking on? What does the icon say that you're clicking on? Oystein said 11 gig is enough for Windows 11. I guess they're going to resize that after installation. Yeah, the files, the Windows installation files are compressed, and as it installs, it decompresses the files. We'll probably be around 30 gigs, 30 and 40 gigs, depending on the configuration. It's pretty normal. Martin says, happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome in, Martin. Do you know the DVR mode is turned on? You can rewind this video right now while it's live if you're curious what you've missed. Sarge Tech says everything about this BMax is suspect, but I saved a lot of money on it. So, you know. This is what people do. They go on Craigslist, they go on Facebook, they buy some sketchy thing that's not all there, you know, and they're so proud of themselves for how much money they saved. Well, apparently we're rebooting now. Well, that was weird. Savvy Wizard says you pay either way. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yes, thank you. That guy gets it. Oystein says, thanks, but it's Monday over here in Norway. Happy Monday. Is it going to work now? That's what Elage wants to know. Yeah, I'd like to know that as well. I'd also like to know what version of Windows I've got on here, because I was assuming it was Windows 11 Pro, but the fact that it didn't auto-activate means either they've got something sketchy going on with bypassing activation on their install, or it's Windows 11 Home. David Ice wants to know, if I change a CPU from an i3 to an i5 or an i7, do I have to do anything to my PC? No, as long as the processor's in the same family, socket type, if it's a socket 1151, if it's a socket 1700, it's got to fit the socket. But other than that, no, there's nothing else. Obviously, you want to do that with the power off, and you'll want to have an appropriate cooler. You don't want to reuse a cooler from a lesser end processor to a higher end. You can do it the other way around if you were downgrading, but the higher end processor will run hotter. David said it's a socket 1151, so as long as you're running another socket 1151 CPU, I'm trying to remember if there was a compatibility issue on chipset. Specifically, what do you have, and specifically, what are you thinking to upgrade to, and specifically on what motherboard? Normally you just swap the CPU out. There's nothing else you have to do normally. There are some exceptions. Scott says, alas, the toilet bowl circle has appeared. Indeed. Indeed it has. Sarge Tech says, Carey does this so we, the people, don't have to. That's right. You can choose to if you want to, but at least you'll have your expectations set properly, and you'll know what to expect, and it should be, you know, much more enjoyable experience when your expectations are met rather than being blindsided unexpectedly with surprises, unless you're into that sort of thing. John wants to know, is an i5 2400 a good CPU? You know, that was a great CPU back in 2010 when it came out. Was it 2010? When did that? That's a second generation Intel. Currently we're at the 13th generation. So the i5 2400 is pretty well obsolete now. That was released on January 2011. So that is a 12-year-old computer. It's like asking, is this 12-year-old German Shepherd a good dog? Yeah, probably, but you're not going to get another 12 years out of them. It's not going to be Windows 11 compatible. It was a good CPU 12 years ago, yes. But by today's standards, not so much. David Ice says, I have an Intel Core i3 7100 KB Lake 3.4 gigahertz dual core. And what do you want to upgrade that to, David? Viable Solutions says, Carey, I use a high-end PC and was told not to use all 4 DIMM sockets as it will cause problems Are there any disadvantages to putting RAM in all four sockets? Yes. First of all, it's not going to run as fast. Secondly, you can't upgrade it because all the sockets are full. Third, you have the opportunity of, you've doubled the opportunity of a bad RAM module ever happening. If you have 2 RAM modules, you only have 2 RAM modules that can fail. If you have 4 RAM modules, you've doubled the statistical likelihood of experiencing a failure. So also with all the memory modules so close together, it generates more heat, it's going to pull more power. Ideally, you want to run with 2 memory modules unless you can't get to the memory level you want to get to. So then you're going to trade capacity for performance. And that's true of hard drives as well. You know, you can get super large capacity mechanical drives for pennies per gigabyte, or you can get much faster, much smaller, lower power consumption NVMe drives of a smaller capacity that costs, you know, about $50 per terabyte these days. So it tends to be price or, let me rephrase, performance or capacity. You got to sort of pick which one you want. When you do one, you lower the other one. You do the other one, you lower the other one. So it should work. It's just, if you're into the performance aspect of it and you want the ability to upgrade and you want to reduce your chances of having a failure, then you're going to want just 2 memory modules. Let me go back full screen over here and finish this off. So what does it want? English, yes. United States. US keyboard. Oh, I should unplug this from the network. I don't want this to force me to sign in. Yes. Skip. Accept the license agreement. Put the username of user. No password. That's good. It didn't even try to go online. I turn these things off except for location, the very first one up there on the top. And hit accept. All right, now that's going to wrap that up. Now, if you go over to my channel here on YouTube, you know I've been making these videos for 15 years here on YouTube, since 2008. And if we, well, let me see, let me open Edge on here. And let me go up to YouTube. And I just want to show you something that you can do when we're not here together and you're looking for more content from me. There's probably over 1,400 videos I've created that you haven't watched. And many of them answer these very common questions like, should I use 2 slots or 4? And I just need to turn the capture on. Windows capture. No, that's not it. That one should be it right there. So if we look, I'll turn camera 1 off. So if we look at YouTube and we type in Carey Holzman, all is one word, and then RAM, you'll find videos that I've done like this one. Very common questions that people have asked about RAM, that's included. And then other issues about RAM covered here, how to install RAM. Should you use all of your RAM slots? What is the best memory configuration? Can you have too much RAM? Does your computer have bad RAM? So I've got a lot of videos on this subject. And then the other thing you can do, obviously, is just go to my channel, which just click on any of my videos and hit the little icon of my picture. And then there's a little a magnifying glass right here, and you can search for RAM just on my channel. That's one way to do that. Then, of course, I also have the Quick Tips channel, which I haven't done much with, but that's where we would take out little segments of live videos where questions were asked and answered. Tried to keep the videos down to 10 minutes or less, that's not the Quick Tips channel. Those are some Quick Tips videos that are shared both here and on the Quick Tips channel. Here's 160 Quick Tips all streamed together. That's not so quick anymore. All right. And anyway, yeah, feel free to peruse through the library. There's a lot of the very frequent questions are asked are already answered there in much more detail. And that's a pretty common one. And let's go back to camera 1 and turn off that capture card. And let me go back over to full screen so I can see full screen. What is our status of Windows? See how my computer's up here? Like I use my Windows 10 optimizer to do that. They're doing it right out of the install, which is just how this computer came. This shows it is Windows 11 Pro, which is what I put in. Is it activated? We can activate. Oh, because I'm not plugged into the network. All right, let's plug it in. Plug that in. And let's go to Windows Update. And let's let it grab whatever updates exist since they made this media. I'm going to go ahead and pull this flash drive and set that aside. That's very interesting. I wonder what would happen if I tried to use that on another machine. I suspect it would still install and work just fine. Oh, I imagine Microsoft does not like that one bit. All right, let's see. Chris McGraw says AM5 doesn't like 4 sticks. Well, memory and AMD chips have long had a compatibility fight that's still hasn't been completely ironed out. And of course, anytime you're dealing with some new socket, right, a brand new chip family like AM5, kind of start over again with all the compatibility stuff. So if you're going to be one of the first people to buy the latest tech, then you're going to go through all those teething problems new technology always has, regardless of if it's Intel or AMD. If it's new technology, there's going to be teething problems for the first year or so. And Jim mentions that if we're talking about DDR5 RAM, using 4 sticks of that can have issues in both AMD or Intel. Yeah, because it's both new technology for both of them, for sure. Glenn says, notice that KB5007651 is showing up twice. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, but this is where we left off, though, isn't it? And it's staying on the screen this time. Well, yeah, now that I've said it out loud. It's very strange. All right, well, I just, I wanted to go live with this. I thought the whole thing was really unusual, pretty sketchy. I know some people have thought maybe the Ace Magician or the Car-ey-lyst or Minis Forum or B-Link Mini PCs were sketchy because they're coming from China where, English is not their native language, but those are reputable companies. And I've asked you guys if you've purchased any of the mini PCs I reviewed, reach out, let me know if you would like the PC, if there's things you don't like about it, or if you ended up sending it back to Amazon for a refund. I'd love to hear the feedback because, if I'm hearing from a bunch of people that they ordered a specific manufacturer's mini PC and didn't like it for any reason or sent it back because it was bad, I need to measure the consensus. Like, I need to figure out, is that just one person saying that, or are there like 20 people saying that? Because if there's a lot of people having issues with a particular manufacturer, whether it's customer service or, you know, the thing's too loud, whatever, if there's a common issue, then I'm going to warn viewers about it. And, you know, I'm going to share that information going forward. If it's just one person having an unusual problem, you know, that happens. It happens for a number of reasons. Mishandling in delivery is often a very common issue. When issues happen, sometimes people have, like, the UPS guy drop kick the package to their door, but we don't know where along the distribution chain any potential dropping of the package or mishandling of the package might have occurred. So I don't worry about any particular complaint. What I am concerned about, because I'm not being paid by any of these mini PC manufacturers. They're sending me units and I'm reviewing them, or I am buying the units as I did with this BMax, so I can, you know, compare it. Is it better? Is it worse? Is it all mostly the same with a different name on it? And this one to me feels worse in a lot of ways. And I don't know if the Windows Update problem is related, as mentioned in the chat, with a bad Windows Update, if it's related to perhaps a video card driver. But I have never seen this before. I don't have any other computers that display Windows Update like that. So it really concerned me that maybe this unit's sketchy. When I went to the website and saw they were distributing Windows 11, they're not allowed to do that. I mean, they're just not allowed to. So I don't know how they're getting away with that. I suppose if you want to download that, you can. I don't know what good it would do you. Certainly it's not activated, right? We go back over to activation settings. Now that it's had time to talk to the activation servers. Yeah, it's not reactivating, and that's concerning to me as well. I don't know if they're plugging a product key in there and they're just using the same product key. And it's not a big deal for me to go to VIP CDK deals and buy a Windows 10 Pro product key, because the Windows 10 Pro product key is cheaper than a Windows 11 Pro product key. And you can activate Windows 11 Pro with a Windows 10 Pro product key, because Windows 11 is a free upgrade from Windows 10. It's also a free upgrade from Windows 7 and 8. So even if you had a Windows 7 or 8 Pro product key, you should be able to use that one time to activate Windows 11 or Windows 10. They're all free upgrades from one to the other, so all those product keys should work once to activate and tie the operating system to the serial number on your board, so future reinstallations will reassign that product key back unless you reuse the product key on another system, in which case, if it works, that new system now overrides and becomes the new one. So if you ever had to do a reinstall, or you might turn the computer on one day and find it's not activated anymore. So you're not allowed to use the product key on more than one computer at a time unless you bought a product key that's a multiple license key. Jason Thomas said he's seeing his computer behave this way in Windows Update on a full-size desktop. Well, that's clearly some kind of a, it sounds like an incompatible driver is what it sounds like. You know, the first thing I think is the video driver. And I don't know, is everybody that's having this problem, do they all have Intel video cards? There's got to be a common denominator there somewhere, because I'm not seeing this problem ever. I've never seen this before. And I work on a lot of computers, so I don't know when this first started, but let's go over to apps. A lot of times it is, stuff like this is driver related, some incompatible driver. And sometimes Microsoft addresses it with an update, or sometimes the driver manufacturer addresses it with an update. Intel Graphics Command Center. So I will take out a bunch of this stuff in here, like I don't want Xbox Live. I don't want Xbox. I don't want this. Office is just an advertisement for Office. Movies and TV, I will replace that with VLC, so we'll get rid of that. Mobile plans, I don't want that. There won't be any mobile plans on this computer ever. Mixed reality portal, there won't be any VR on this computer ever. Microsoft Education, Minecraft Education Edition, okay. No. OneDrive I don't want, we'll uninstall OneDrive. Microsoft News I don't want, we'll uninstall that. What else? Media player, again VLC will replace that, so we'll get rid of that. Family, I don't know what this is. I don't want it though. Okay, oh, AV1 video extension, nice. Okay, so drivers, let's take a look at the device manager because we used their installer. It should have put the drivers on for us. Let's see if it did. Yeah, it did. With a regular Windows 11 install, we'd have to put a bunch of drivers on here that are not built into Windows 11. So by using their installer, it's plugging all those in for us. The good news is that I don't see anything wrong with their installer. Like it doesn't seem to be creating any issues. Doing a fresh, clean install of Windows 11 results in the same Windows Update problem. And it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that to see how that gets addressed, because something like that is going to be, it should be anyway, prioritized to get that addressed and repaired, whether it's a further Microsoft update or a driver update from something that's causing that. Jim mentions that some of that junk I just uninstalled will be reinstalled after a feature upgrade. This is true, but it's not a big deal. Luke Greenia says, I just checked my mini PC and it's doing the same update issue as well. It's definitely weird. It was updating normally with the last update. Well, I appreciate that information, Luke. So that sort of, it makes me feel a little bit more trust in this system here. Jason Thomas says, my computer started doing that thing with Windows Update after the last update came out on his desktop computer. Viable Solution says, Carey, I just want to say you have the best community of any PC tech expert on YouTube. This channel's been a godsend to me, helping me build my new computer. We do have an amazing community here, and I can't speak highly enough about the regulars, the folks in blue, who have been coming here for, in many cases, many years, and show just the kindest courtesy and respect to people who come in and make everybody feel welcome. And they're also quick to kick people out when they're spamming or being vulgar or just trying to draw attention to themselves, which helps me stay focused on my content. So absolutely, and I'm so glad that you're a part of our community, and I'd love to see this community just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger with like-minded individuals, because there's just not enough of that in the world today, quite honestly. Bikeman says, my clean install of Windows 11 Pro on the desktop is doing the same thing on Windows Update. So now, and this is what happens, the timing of the Windows Update creating this issue, along with me reviewing a new computer from a manufacturer I've never dealt with before, couldn't be made up. Like I couldn't, what are the odds? So if I had seen this problem before, like on any of my computers, if I had seen this behavior then seeing it on this new computer, I wouldn't think, oh, well, what fresh junk is this, right? But when you combine that I've never used the computer before, and you combine that I've never seen that Windows Update problem before, it sure looks to me like that's unique to this specific machine. So thankfully, I have this community that I can share the experience, and you folks can say, no, you're not alone, Carey, I'm seeing it too. Now I would have to, I can look at the streaming computer and I can go to Windows Update on it. And I usually do that every time before I stream, just to grab any updates. And it just works like it's supposed to. So I don't know why I'm only seeing it on this machine. But it does make me feel better that it's not necessarily any particular issue with these very strange component manufacturers inside. And just because they're strange doesn't mean they're bad. Just to be clear. But if something is bad, I'm getting an antivirus update on the streamer right now, and Windows Update is working exactly like I expected to. This is the only time I've ever seen that. Now maybe if I start pulling out the mini PCs and checking each one, I'll be able to repeat the behavior. But I suspect that through another Windows Update, it's going to fix whatever this is. And if I had reviewed this computer either before the update came out that's causing it, or after the update comes up that fixes it, my review would be completely different, right? I wouldn't be so skeptical. So let that be a lesson to all of us who do this, right? We come to conclusions which may just happen to be timing issues. I think it's weird that it's not recognizing NVMe drives, but again, it's not a deal breaker, not a big deal. Does anybody have any last questions here? We'll wrap up today's video. George says Microsoft is not releasing annual updates to Windows 10. 22HT will be the last big update. Yes, Microsoft always does this. They did the same thing on Windows 8. They did the same thing on Windows 7. They did the same thing on Windows Vista. They did the same thing on Windows XP, right? They said there isn't going to be a Service Pack 4 on Windows XP, for example. And that usually happens 2 years before the end of life date. That all follows the typical Microsoft protocol that they've repeated every single operating system since Windows XP. It's always been the same. So that is normal and expected, yes. That's not a news item. If you've been around computers long enough, you know that that is the standard procedure for what happens before an operating system reaches end of life. Yeah. Jason Thomas asks, do you have a capture card to use OBS? You don't need to. You can use a web camera. You could even use mini phones. Yeah. Marsman wants to know if I'm still using the same bridge, Wi-Fi bridge. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Same one. I tried upgrading it to a gigabit one, and that one was finicky, so I got tired of its finicky nature. I'd make it work, and then it would have problems. So I just took it down, sent it back to Amazon. I was almost at 30 days. I was really stubborn trying to make that work for over 3 weeks. And I said, you know what? It's not worth it. I'll just put the 100 megabit one back up. And it's been rock solid just like it was before. That's what I get for trying to fix something that ain't broke. I should take my own advice, shouldn't I? Sarge Tech says, thanks, Carey. This was a fine way to spend my Sunday afternoon. Well, thanks for hanging out with me, Sarge Tech. And Zach Bischoff says, hello. Mira Ora wants to know if I can link to the Wi-Fi bridge that I'm using that is working well. I think if we just go to YouTube and type Carey Holzman space bridge, it should bring that video up. And in the video description should be a link directly to it. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I can't just magically pull links out without having to do the research, and it's going to take a few minutes, and you could easily pull that up. Jason Thomas says, I enjoy hanging out here with everyone. Well, we enjoy having you. And Mira Ora posts a link to YouTube. I'm guessing that's the bridge video. Yeah. And the link is right there in the video description. There you go. You've answered your own question. Let me go back. Winston Liu contributes $2.20. Says B-Link is still a safe PC in general. Yeah, like I said, I like hearing from people that have bought any of the products I've shown, because again, I'm not their spokesman. I'm not getting paid to show them. And if I'm hearing from people, from an alarming number of people over issues, then I will take a second thought at whether or not I want to showcase any more of their products, okay? But you guys have to talk to me. In fact, if you enjoy the product, you need to tell me that as well, because maybe I'll work towards making them a sponsor of the show. Oh, wrong mouse here. Thank you to Red Dragon, who contributed $5 via Super Chat a few moments ago. Thank you, Red Dragon. And does anybody else have any questions I can answer for you? Even if it's me pointing you to one of my videos. I will do that because if I'm going in depth on a video, I'll get into more detail than what I'm going to do, here live. But I can point you in that direction, and I'm more than happy to do that. George wants to know if I have received the Minis Forum NAD 9. I have not yet. Bill says, are you going to return the BMax since it's shady? No. It seems to work just fine. As far as I can tell, it's fine. Can't see any reason to return it. I also don't know what returns are like with this website. I never bought anything from them before, and I don't want to go through it, quite honestly. I got other things to do. If I felt like there was, like I was ripped off, then yeah, I would send it back. I don't feel like I was ripped off here. I feel like I got exactly what I paid for. I wasn't gouged, but it wasn't the deal it seemed to be. It was fair. And if that 1 terabyte drive was an NVMe drive, I'd be stoked for what I paid. But given what it is and what I paid, it's fair. It's just fair. Oystein wants to know, the Wi-Fi bridge you have is 5 gigahertz, right? The Amazon page shows 2.4 gigahertz to 59.99 and a 5 gigahertz to 99.99. So I don't know. I don't know what frequency range they're in, Oystein. They talk to each other on their own proprietary communications channel that is not a typical Wi-Fi channel in use by consumer routers. If I remember correctly, I recall it being in the higher end of 5 gigahertz, but I just can't remember what it is. It's a plug and play. You don't really go in and change anything. You just literally plug them in. You might have to find a channel that's less noisy. There's a little button underneath. I go through it on the video. It's all on the, all the details of that are on the video. Winston Lou contributes $2.20. Canadian says, can we get another B-Link? I do have 2 new B-Links to review that I haven't gotten to yet, and they've been sitting here for a couple of weeks. Where's my OBS? There it is. If I step off camera here for a second, I will show you what's going to be coming up. I have 3 mini PCs. That I've not reviewed yet. This is a brand new model of Ace Magician that is not for sale yet. It's a pretty unusual look, and yeah, I can't wait to get into this one particularly because that may be a YouTube exclusive, just like the Minis Forum, the last 2 Minis Forum mini PCs that I built. As far as I know, I'm the only one on YouTube that's done a review on them yet. That's how quickly I'm getting these units. This is the SER series mini PC, and this is an AMD Ryzen 7 5800H from B-Link. Look how small this box is. And then this is one of the budget, sub $200. This is the N100 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, 500 gigs storage, Wi-Fi 6, 2.5 gig LAN. And this is the 12th gen, what's it called, EQ? So I've got that to review, this to review, and I'll give you a little sneak peek at this one. Don't tell them I showed you. Don't you get me in trouble now. Kind of different. Bring it up closer. Kind of a different look from Ace Magician. There's a QR code. Maybe you can cheat and look it up if you really want to know. Or you're just going to have to stay tuned to find out what the heck this is. Hopefully we will get to this next week. Maybe next Friday, I don't know. So the hot dog build, I built that to teach you why you don't go cheap on stuff, all the headaches, and frustration, and Band-Aids that typically result from buying shoddy equipment, thinking you're getting a deal, when in most cases you're getting exactly what you paid for. And it's a good test of your patience trying to get this stuff to work. And I ended up putting a different motherboard in there, and then that 13600, I didn't realize that thing ran at 5.1 gigahertz and how much heat that generated. And even the liquid cooler I picked seems a bit inadequate for it, but I think I'm going to go ahead and add an RGB power cable to it like I have over here. And I'm also thinking of doing a little research to figure out what vertical riser is going to work in there. Those vertical riser cables are like $60 to $90, and I haven't seen 2 that are alike. And I don't know which one is going to fit in that case. But that video card's got some really nice controllable RGB on it, and I think it would look great to be sitting vertically. And every time I've tried to build a system with a vertical GPU, I cannot find a bridge or an extension that will fit in it. So like the Cougar Conquer case, where I got the big robot's foot case, I've seen some videos where people are sort of hodgepodging it to make it work, but I don't want to do it that way. I want it to fit properly. And if anybody finds out, which PCI Express extension cable is going to work on that Allseye case I'm using on the hot dog build, I think that'll be the final garnish, is to have the vertical video card and the RGB color power cable. In fact, I got the power cable in today, And I just was looking for something different because that's the Leon Lee Strymer in there. And then, of course, there's the new version of it. And then there's Ergu. I don't know what Ergu is, but it's called Ergu. And I think it's ARGB, which means it'll plug into the ARGB of the case. I don't know. I don't like RGB. I think it's stupid. So on occasion, I'll do it because it's silly. It's a nightmare in cable management, and you can spend hours messing around with different light patterns that has no impact on PC performance, security, or reliability. It's just a complete and utter waste of money and a complete and utter waste of time. But sometimes, on occasion, rarely, doing something stupid because it's fun, if you don't take it too seriously, if you don't care too much about the money, why not? If you've got the time and you've got the money and you just feel like that would be fun, but if it's something you want to get done, you want to keep it on a budget, you don't want it overcomplicated, stay away from the RGB stuff because it's just a time suck and a wallet suck. It's just silly. I don't know where it's going to stop. We're going to put RGB in our refrigerators and our stoves and our washing machines. I wouldn't be surprised. It just makes about as much sense. With everything moving towards mini PCs, I'm seeing more and more of the mini PCs coming out. I wouldn't be surprised, and I can't predict the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if home users, purely for financial reasons alone, buy the mini PCs instead of the desktops. Because most home users aren't upgrading. They're not using a lot of storage space. And I realize, I've got a lot of enthusiasts that come in and watch my channel, and it's not really who my channel's for, and I don't mind that they're here, but sometimes they ask questions that, I don't know, they just kind of seem to me to be sort of looking at everything under a magnifying glass that most people don't care about. So I sometimes get a little frustrated with the level of minutia some people are interested in. And I can't help but wonder if they're just asking to ask or if they're sincerely interested in buying a unit and they need to know that information before making a purchase. Because, look, if you're somebody in sales, you don't want to spend 3 hours with a customer who's just shopping and not going to, they don't have any money, they couldn't buy if they wanted to, right? And at the same time, I don't want to provide a bunch of information that gets into a bunch of tech minutia that 99% of my audience isn't interested in. It's just one person asking. But if that one person is sincere about buying it and there's a real reason why they want to know, what's the audio decibel level of the fan? Like, really? Seriously? I'll answer it to the best I can, but that's not really why I created my channel. There's enough of that minutia online, and let me rephrase, I've very rarely had any incidents with customers complaining about fan noise, especially nowadays. When that was happening, I had a doctor once complained that the sound of his hard drive was too annoying. After a hard drive upgrade, the new hard drive was too loud. Once. It happened once. And then I've had people complain of fan noise when the fan is broken, like it's making a high-pitched squeal, or it's making it sounds like there's a card and bicycle spokes, like a grinding sound, but not under normal operation. I have had maybe 3-4 customers that thought their computer fan was too loud, and they were all using the stock Intel fans, and upgrading them to a third-party cooler was the solution, because those coolers are bigger fans. Bigger fans don't have to turn as fast to move more air, so they're quieter. But it's not common. It's very unusual. It would have to be exceptionally loud for me to make mention of it. Michael says, I had a temper tantrum working on an HP that had the worst case design, and I was attempting to remove the hard drive. I'm waiting on a Samsung SSD for it for my parents, and I'm never buying HP again. So HP's consumer electronic stuff is just absolute junk in my opinion. But their business stuff, like the HP mini PCs that have been given away here, these things are built like a tank. You wouldn't know this was the same HP. Get your hands on one of these, you'll have a whole new respect for HP. I know I do. But the consumer stuff, that's built to a price. It's built as a commodity. And I really wish they didn't use the HP name on it, because it really ruins their reputation. HP doesn't sell that level of junk to businesses. Only the consumers get that. And you know why? Because that's what the consumers are demanding. They're like, make it cheaper. So HP says, okay, you want it cheaper. You know, they're going to say, I can get the Dell for less money than yours. And that's because Dell's doing all these cheap shortcuts. And so HP has to also do the cheap shortcuts to be competitive. So consumers are causing it to themselves. The question to ask is, why did your parents buy that HP computer? And 9 times out of 10, it's because it was the price. And that's why it was the price it was. So consumers are causing this problem that consumers are complaining about. And this problem does not exist in business computers, generally speaking. Richard Palmentier says the HP Desk Pro I have from you is doing just great. Yeah, as I expect it would. There's my friend Ron Hillier joining us in the chat. Hi, Ron. So much proprietary junk in consumer and Dell consumer grade computers, yeah. That's how they get the price down. That's all people want, cheap. Make it cheap. And there's ways to make it cheap. They can absolutely get the price down. I'm just going to show you something here. Let's go over to my YouTube channel. Let's see. I saw a video released today that I thought was pretty interesting. Where is it now? Check my subscriptions. It's got to be in here somewhere. You guys might be interested in watching this video. Once I can find it, I will share it with you. I was kind of on the fence of ordering one to verify it or to evaluate it for myself, but the more I think about it, the more I think it's overpriced. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this guy's Dave's Garage is the name of the channel. He was a Microsoft programmer, and I've talked about his channel before. About 8 hours ago, he posted this video. It's called The Sigma, the most powerful single-board Windows PC. Now, I'm not quite sure who's buying these. It doesn't come with a case, so I guess you have to, I mean, I don't even know where you get a case for it. But it's a whole computer minus the case that's like a mini PC. And he has a link down here. It's called the Latte Panda Sigma at lattepanda.com. And it's kind of pricey. It looks like it's a project board, like people who like Raspberry Pi and stuff like that. And if we hit the buy button, it's $579 bare bones. And it does say server, but it's Windows 10 and 11 compatible and Linux compatible. So without an SSD, I guess you get RAM, but no solid state drive and no Wi-Fi at $579 and no case. Or you can get it with the solid state drive and 6E Wi-Fi at $648, which would obviously be much cheaper for you to do that yourself. And again, it concerns me that there doesn't appear to be a box for it. But it's a 12-core, 16-thread Core i5-1340, 13th gen processor, and I feel like some of these mini PCs are more powerful than this. And they're in a case, you know. So I'm not quite sure who this is for, other than people that like, you know, little projects. But if you want to learn more about it, be sure and check out Dave's Garage. He's also got a lot of great content about being a programmer, being a developer at Microsoft. And, you know, he was one of the key developers in Activation and the blue screen, all that. Like, he was a developer when all that stuff was being decided upon, and has a lot of very interesting stories to share about his time at Microsoft. He's retired now, and talks about programming, talks about Wi-Fi, talks about autism. He talks about just a variety of topics, which I'm always a fan of people that, you know, don't just do one thing. So there's some content I'm not interested in, obviously, as I would imagine I make content you're not interested in, but I try and cover a lot of different subjects. Here he's talking about how RAID works, Windows 11 with 30 hard drives in a RAID configuration, the dark history of zip files. Oh, the Janet Jackson thing, I remember that. Little projects that he makes. Anyway, you're in the mood for some more tech content coming from somebody that was in the industry, not just an enthusiast, I think you might like his content. Be sure and check him out. Richard says, explaining computers, shows a single board computer on his channel. Chris does a lot of these SPCs. I've only recently discovered explaining computers, so I haven't gone back much in his library to see what he's covered. I know he does a lot of project stuff, a lot of Raspberry Pi stuff, and I'm not really interested in any of the project stuff, but it's good to know that he's done these single board computers. I don't think I've ever heard the term single board computer before, except when I had that little Intel Nook 9 Extreme. That's the time, I think that's the only time I've ever heard of a single board computer. So that's a terminology I'm not familiar with. Mark Gaines says, Carey, did you see Dawood does gaming on an NZXT Kraken all-in-one? I did see that. I watch all of Dawood's videos when they come out. And I haven't had time to really go through his back library, but Dawood makes some really funny tech stuff. I like that he has a very everyman approach. He doesn't come across as a techie. He doesn't come across as nerdy. He just comes across as a regular guy that likes tinkering around with this stuff and isn't afraid to break it. And he's hilarious. So yeah, he tried to play a video game on the monitor on the cooler. Like, you see the spinning cube on the cooler? It didn't work well. Why would you want to do that? But if you're in the mood for a laugh, yeah, Dawood Does Tech Stuff is the name. It's like David, but instead of a V, it's a W. Dawood. Dawood Does Tech Stuff. Great channel. Highly recommended. Guy is hilarious. He doesn't get overly complicated. He doesn't get buried in the tech minutia. Yeah. And if you're also into gaming, he covers a lot of gaming-related subject, as well as when he's testing like the performance of a system, maybe an older used system he bought from eBay, does it work as a gaming PC? Or just the sarcasm of, you know, some $100 gaming PC on Amazon. That's how they sell it, you know. Mini gaming PC, $100. And then he throws games on it, and then they move at like 3 frames per second. And he's like, oh yeah, that's a great gaming PC. So the sarcasm's nice and thick, and I enjoy that. Chris McGraw mentions ETA Prime. I'm also subscribed to ETA Prime. They have excellent videos as well. In fact, if we go through, wrong mouse, Carey. Let me go back to my window capture and look at my subscriptions. I mean, I've got a lot of subscriptions here on the left side. You'll see 133, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. There's 140 channels I subscribe to. That covers the gamut of my interests. Jerry Rig Everything is an excellent channel. Iron Chef Dad is fantastic. Serve the Home, Patrick does a great job there. Minis Forum has their own channel. Insider Food is pretty interesting. Dave Hacks. Sophia Nygaard, she makes some really great content. TechMoan is a pretty good channel. I enjoy watching TechMoan. Braithorn, if you're interested in pre-built gaming PCs, he kind of specializes in evaluating those. The Grumpy Plumber, this guy's fantastic. If you want to learn about plumbing from a retired plumber who, did it for a living. Chig's Tech Reviews, a fantastic channel. Stephen he's hilarious when you're in the mood for some comedy. Ryan George. Marcus Pix, he does all about photography and lighting and cinematography. The 8-Bit Guy, looking back on some older technology. New Wave Toys. Underdone is this gentleman. His name is Robert Dunn, and this is like his secondary channel. His main channel is called Aging Wheels, and that's fantastic car stuff he does. Pitch meetings are always hilarious. CBS Sunday Morning has interviews with celebrities quite often that I'm very interested in. In particular, they had an interview here recently with Michael J. Fox, and you can see he's not, that Parkinson's is really, it's getting worse. It's tough to see him like that, but it's good to see he's still in the fight, and he has a great attitude. So, Pine Hollow is automotive diagnosing and repair. Customer States What is hilarious. In South Main Auto, these are all car repair channels. Food Theory is fantastic. Yeah. Lock-picking lawyer, can't say enough great about him. Granny Pouty Mouth is hilarious, although she hasn't done much recently. Deformed Lunchbox makes some really interesting horror short films, independent films, with amazing production quality. I Do Cars, this guy tears engines down, shows how they're designed differently, and kind of does a forensic analysis of why the engine broke. Chris Harden just drives around areas around Michigan and kind of introduces you to cities, what they're like. Of course, Greg Salazar. Ismo is a Finnish comedian. He is hilarious. Budget Nerd, also a great channel here as well. And Timmy Joe, I don't think he's making he's not making any videos anymore, I don't think. Which is a shame. Maybe he'll come back someday. Mark Tilbury, he's a very interesting guy. Bill Owen has some of the most amazing custom PC modifications you will ever see. This guy is on another level. He does what I do, as 10% of his job. The other 90% is making the computer a piece of art. So never mind, it's all got to work. You know, all the components have to be compatible and reliable and fast. That's nothing for this guy. For him, the talent is in the design of the case. And every case he does is like a sculpture. It's unique, one-off, no two are ever alike, and they're all handmade. And he does just an amazing job with the custom painting and even custom 3D prints materials. And yeah, it's really, really cool. So highly recommend. All these channels are fantastic, by the way. So when you're looking for some good content, and you know, don't do it when I'm live. There's some suggestions for you to check out. And if you like them, subscribe to them. Be sure to click the bell icon and turn your notifications on so you can know whenever they post new content. And let's not forget our good friend Doug Betts over at Live Windows Training with Doug Betts. Does a lot of live diagnostic with people with Windows-related problems, printer problems, whatever people throw at him live, unscripted, unrehearsed. He's a PC technician with over 30 years of experience like myself. He's a friend of the channel. He's been a guest here many times. His community is a smaller channel, but it's also a more intimate channel. Everybody knows each other, generally speaking, but there's always, because it's still in its infancy, there's great time to get in and be known, if you will, instead of getting lost in the crowd, which, you know, I'm sure given enough time, his community will continue to grow and grow. I certainly hope so. And the information he offers can be very, very useful if you want to learn more about diagnosing and repairing the hardware, the software. He covers all of it. Sarge Tech mentions Report of the Week. I don't think I subscribe to him, but I enjoy him from time to time. Michael says, I noticed in the HP it has an Intel Optane drive. Do I need to take it out in order to get the Samsung Magician software to work? The Samsung Magician software does not work with Intel's RST or rapid storage technology, so that has to be disabled in the BIOS. As for whether or not Optane has to come out, I think Optane has to have RST to work. So I think you got to pick one or the other. Richard mentions he's watched Explaining Computers for years. He does a lot of different things. Scroll through his content, you'll see all the stuff he does. He's a good teacher. Yes, Christopher Barnett? Yeah, it seems like a great guy. The only thing holding me back is time. But he is definitely on the subscription list as well. Sarge Tech mentions he likes Food Wishes, Fred Flicks, LGR, Mr. Carlson's Lab, Rick Beto, yeah, with the guitar. Sam the Cooking Guy. I stopped watching Sam the Cooking Guy because he's making food I would not eat. But I do like his delivery. I like his on-air personality. He seems like a down-to-earth, approachable guy. But he's making food that I'm like, yeah, no thanks, I'm not eating that. So it seems pretty rare that he's actually making something I would eat. So for that reason, I don't subscribe to him anymore. But on occasion, I do see his video from time to time, and I do enjoy his content. Forgot about Sam the Cooking Guy. I have one of his knives in my kitchen. He, for a while, was selling branded kitchen, what's the word I want? Kitchen gadgets and kitchen knives. So this is a Sam the Cooking Guy knife that, you know, obviously he's not making it, he's partnered with a manufacturer, put his logo on it. It was a fair price, and I enjoy supporting what he's doing. And yeah, when I need to cut something big, like a big old spaghetti squash or something, this bad boy comes out and gets the job done. Unfortunately, the handle doesn't match any of my other knives. It's the only thing That's the only knife that I have from him, but it's a good knife. I got respect for people that when they're selling merch on their channel, that they're making sure it's quality merch and they're not just in it for the money grab. And I get that sense from Sam the Cooking Guy that, you know, these are all kitchen utility things that he uses himself. It's got to be up to his standards. All right, guys, thank you again for hanging out with me. We'll have to follow up what's going on with Windows Update. If you hear anything about it, please leave it in the comments below with a link. I anticipate we should get an answer to this within the next couple of weeks, I hope. And in the meantime, as far as this BMax goes, I can't recommend it. Again, I'm not going to return it. It's fine, but it's not very upgradable. It's sort of the way it is the way it's intended to be. And I realize you can put a 2.5-inch drive in there, but why would you? And you can if you want to, and that's fine. You're not really pushing the limits of it or anything. But as far as, you know, comparing it to the Ace Magician units, the B-Link units, and the Minis Forum units, I feel like this is way down at the bottom. But it's not terrible. But I definitely think you can do better. I'll know more when this Windows Update issue gets addressed, and then I can go back and review it. Right now, I'm afraid that results I'm getting are not accurate. The fact that it doesn't accept an NVMe drive really upsets me, even in the reality that most people wouldn't notice the performance difference anyway. I just feel like in this day and age, with that modern of a processor, it's inexcusable. And I'm really suspect about them, the way that Windows 11 installed. I'm pretty sure Microsoft doesn't allow that. But thank you for the contributions and for the participation. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And members only video tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific time, as always. So if you're a member of the channel, I hope you'll join me tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time, every Monday, members only videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. And until next time, bye for now.